Welcome to today's episode. Tony Welch is our guest. He's on Instagram as Original Cornish Carper, so go and check him out. Then all we do, we'll just start. I'll introduce you, and then if you can just give us a bit of background about, where it started for you, how you got into it, and then sort of your style of fishing. Because I've seen loads of fish on your Instagram, so you obviously catch a few. Are you from Cornwall originally or not?
Yeah, I'm from Penryn in Cornwall, which really is how I got into carp fishing because my parents are Penryn, obviously, and College Reservoir, which a lot of people have heard of. I think it was sort of a fairly famous lake back in the day, written about numerous times by people like Ken Townley. Well, that lake is a 40-acre reservoir, and it's literally 5 minutes walk from my mum and dad's house. I remember them. They'd been out for a walk, and they came home one evening and said, "Oh, we've just seen some lad with a big rucksack on his back and carrying some sort of bed and rods on his way down to the reservoir." So that sort of captured my interest, if you like, and I wanted to check that out. But from an angling perspective, I first started sea angling because Cornwall is a great place for sea angling. The bass beaches and so on and so forth. But I went out pollock fishing off the rocks with a mate of mine. I don't know how old we were, probably 12, something like that. And we failed miserably, which then led me going to college, literally, float fishing for roach and rudd, squeezing pieces of bread onto a size 16 hook and having a lovely time catching all the little small roach and rudd. But continually doing that, you'd have to bump into people, and eventually I bumped into some carp anglers, and I saw a nice fully scaled on the bank. I don't know, about £19 at the time, which would have been around 1990. So quite a long time ago.
Yeah, and good sized fish for them, I suppose, on that area.
Oh yeah, I mean, a 19, it's just a 19-pounder, isn't it? But back then, I mean, it would look something like a 40 on the bank now. So that's how it sort of began for me, in the very early 90s on College Reservoir. Yeah.
Brilliant. We might as well carry on rolling, and I'll just cut the intro in. Have you always stuck to Cornwall, or have you sort of moved further out the country with your fishing? How's it sort of played out?
Yeah, well, I suppose being a schoolboy, I was sort of trapped, if you like, on College Reservoir, but it wasn't a bad place to be at 48, the stock of carp that it had, and the calibre of angler that was on the lake at the time. It was a really good place to be and a nice place to be. And then I suppose once I passed my driving test at 17, sort of the world's your oyster then, isn't it? And I did move slightly further afield, but not too far. Places like Salamander Lake or Parr Duck Pond, which is only about 30 miles away. So I moved on to that one for a little while, and then around the year 2000, unfortunately, college closed, and the fish needed to be moved to the neighbouring Argyll Reservoir. So that was a mammoth task in itself, and a lot of the local anglers obviously did their utmost. A few local anglers tried to stop it from being closed, but it was never going to happen. It was closed, and we, between several of us, moved as many fish as we possibly could from college to Argyll, and then college closed and Argyll opened. So that was, you're almost fishing for the same fish, if you like, but in a completely different environment, because Argyll is totally different to college, even though it's right next door. College is, as I said, 40 acres. It's fairly sort of shallow, weedy with islands, and bays and so on. It's absolutely beautiful. And Argyll is, albeit it's still a nice lake, but it's sort of 65 acres, way deeper. The bottom is, fairly hard compared to College. There's not a lot of natural food in Argyll, whereas there was an abundance of it in College. College has got one of those sort of smelly, silky bottoms to it, whereas Argyll's quite hard, and there's a lot of stone and walls, and a lot of underground hassle, if you like, in Argyll, that you need to be aware of if you fish the lake. So it's completely different, but the fish, they did come on, and they grew, and it ended up producing 40-pounders in the end. Only a few of them, only a couple of them, but still, it was really good, and it produced a lot of 30-pounders, and they were all lovely, sort of leany strain carp. And there's still a few of them kicking around, but not so many. But yeah, but in answer to your question, I did move on in the end. I suppose around 2008, ish, 7, 8, 9, something along those sort of years. I ended up becoming sponsored by various companies, and I did go further afield then. But still southwest based, if you like. Sort of Horseshoe area.
Nice.
A couple of trips to Linear and that, and I did fish a nice lake called Rough Grounds, which is right opposite Horseshoe, which is quite nice.
Fish there.
Yeah, beautiful place.
Famous stock of fish as well, aren't they? On the
Water
Park strain.
Yeah, and it sort of reminded me a little bit of College while I was there, because it's a similar sort of size, and but it was just a winter ticket that I had on that lake. But there was a lovely common in there, which was a target fish, and I was lucky enough to catch that fish, and that just made it for me. It was brilliant. It's difficult, isn't it, when you live so far away, right down in the southwest, to go anywhere. It's a mission,
Yeah, it's a trek. I had Tom Smith on a couple of episodes ago, and he's planning Horton this year, which I think he said is 4 hours on a good run.
Yeah, I know Tom. He's a great lad, and I mean, he only lives a few miles up the road from me, and I mean, it was always it's about 4 hours, I suppose, 3 3/4, something like that, to Horseshoe from where we are. So you can 4 hours to Linear. It's the mammoth task if you and then obviously families come along for me as well in recent years. So when you've obviously got as well, they take priority over everything, and time then becomes a real issue. And I mean, I'm not going to be driving 4 hours to do a night and 4 hours back again. As keen as I am, I'm not going to be doing that.
How old are the kids?
Oh, they're only youngsters, 5 and 7.
Right. Have they gone out fishing with you yet or not?
Yeah, they've both been, actually, and I absolutely love it when they come. In fact, I probably enjoy taking them more than just going on my own, because I don't know. I suppose not that there's pressure on you to catch carp, but when I go on my own, I'm not going to sit there and watch the sunset. I am going to go and try and catch myself a carp, because time's limited and I like catching them. And so I'm going full bore to catch a fish. And if I miss the sunset then and catch, who cares? I've missed the sunset. I'll watch another one tomorrow. So, but when I take the children with me, it's a different story. I don't care whether I catch or not. Then it's not the point. The point is that I'm spending time with them, and they're enjoying the outdoors with me. And we normally have a movie on an iPad, which obviously doesn't happen when I go by myself. And so on and so forth. We have a barbecue outside, and it's a fun event. And I tend to go to more heavily stocked lakes, more sort of commercial type waters when I've got the kids with me, because it's just more fun, isn't it? But it's nice to get the rods singing, and the alarm singing, I should say, and the rods bending. But it's fun, full stop. And it doesn't matter where we go, whether it's a muddy pond full of pale ones that are easy to catch, or whether it's a big 40-acre, 50-acre lake. And they're difficult to catch. As long as we're together and we're having fun, that's what counts there,
And did you sort of go straight into carp with them, or did you start them off course fishing?
Wow, to be honest, neither of them are interested in fishing really.
Mm.
They are more about having a treat by sleeping
Yeah,
outside in a tent
camping out.
overnight and watching the film outside and the barbecue
Yeah.
and this that, and the other. They're not overly interested in it from an angling perspective, but
Hmm.
yeah, I have it's sort of a mix really. I took them for a few day sessions and we messed around with a float rod catching roach and stuff, which was okay. But they really get excited when there's a carp on,
Hmm.
there's something is big that's coming
Yeah,
compared to a roach or a
pulling
rudd.
back.
Yeah, that's it exactly. It's making some big splashes just before they go in the net. That gets them excited.
Oh. Have you got sort of many runs waters nearby, or do you have to travel for those?
We've got there's one or two. We've got Roach Angling Club um, in Cornwall, which is fairly well-known club. It's been around for an
Mm-hmm.
awful long time.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Embryo came down and fenced one of their lakes, um, and another one. I think there's about 7 or 8 lakes, but one of them anyway, Rashley. That's more of a runs water than anything else.
Right.
Only smaller fish in there. It's about 7 acres,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you've got to be casting sort of, I don't know, 50 to 80 yards across to a far margin, nice and tight.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some nice carp in there. They're small. You're talking maybe up to sort of low 20s, but
Yeah.
they're jet black, scaly, beautiful fish to catch, and
Right.
it's deep as well. So when you play them in and they're coming in close, see them coming up through the clear water
Mm.
and charging around, which obviously makes it a bit more
I remember because we always used to go to Cornwall on holiday as a family when I was a kid. And there
fun.
was one lake, and it sounds similar to that. It was really clear, but really deep. And I'd never seen anything like it. It was probably sort of, I say really deep. It probably wasn't as deep. It's like when you're a child, it always seems
Yeah,
more extreme. But I remember float fishing and trying to set the depth of the float, and it just like there
yeah,
wasn't enough. Like trying to
yeah,
zig fish at extreme depths. It was one of those scenarios. Yeah, but I remember catching like huge roach and rudd from there, just
yeah,
like mid water.
yeah. You can't remember the name of the lake.
No, I can probably dig back. My brother lives in Cornwall now. He'll probably know. But
Yeah.
it was almost like Cornwall. I always think is almost like it's like a country of its own. It shouldn't be part of England. It seems too nice to be part of England. I don't know
Oh,
why. It just seems
yeah,
like borderline tropical almost, doesn't it?
yeah. So it is. It's beautiful down here. It's a lot. It's a sort of lower population, if you like,
Mm,
an older population,
yeah.
um, and yeah, a lot of countryside, um,
Hmm.
and a lot of coast. Which it's not. There's no inner city in
Yeah.
Cornwall. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's just a nice place to be, but it's miles away, bloody miles away
Yeah.
from all the decent carp.
Yeah, it's you can't have it all type scenario, isn't it? I think.
That's it. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you want the best of both worlds. Unfortunately,
Why has there never sort of been prolific carp waters down there? Because obviously it's milder in the winters, isn't it, around the coast and things, and sort of further south you go. Why do you think it is? Because nobody stopped them, or
yeah. I think probably. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it just takes someone to get hold of a nice piece of water and do something with it. I think,
mm,
and no one has really done that yet. And it might just be the fact that they might look at the business view and say, well, there's just not the amount of
yeah,
anglers in the
yeah,
county that would warrant it. And why would anybody drive past all the other lakes
yeah,
in order to drive down into Cornwall to do that? Although saying that, a long time ago, before we could fish all year round, there was a close season in the country, and
mhm,
it didn't happen in Cornwall. There was no closed season in this county. And
right,
I can't think of the reason why off the top of my head, but we used to see a lot of anglers from all over the country. They used to, as soon as it was closed season, they used to head
mm,
straight for college. And, I got friendly with anglers from the Midlands, from Kent, you name it. They came from everywhere to fish college. And it was good. It was a great time to be carp fishing.
Yeah. With your style of fishing, do you find you've sort of find things down to suit like fishing these reservoirs? I mean, obviously, I suppose you spent an awful lot of time on them. Are you sort of constantly refining your methods and things to suit the water you're on?
I would say you sort of get into the swing of things, and you sort of refine your kit, if you like, and your tactics uh, with regards to the type of lake you're fishing. So, with Argyle, for example, it's 65 acres. A lot of people believe you've got to be fishing at, over 100 yards on there, but you really don't. But you may need to in certain circumstances. So I would say that, yeah, you sort of adapt your kit and your tactics, knowing what's going on under the water, with regards to snags and so on and so forth. But also you need to get a bit of range, and you want your rigs that obviously aren't going to be tangling, and there's bream in there as well. So you've got to think about your bait with regards to those things, because you don't want to be down there putting out solid PVA bags, messing around tying them up, casting them out, and then within 5 minutes you get a little slow drop back and there's a bream hanging on the end, which is a right pain in the ass, as we all know. So yeah, you do, you adjust your tactics for that. I suppose if you're fishing small lakes, you might go down to sort of a 2 3/4 pound test curve rod, and lighter lines and so on. But when you're battling with undertow, with strong southwesterlies pushing in, and you're fishing in 20 foot plus depths, and you've got to use big baits and so on to avoid the nuisance fish, tactics to avoid the nuisance fish and so on. So yeah, predominantly I'm a boilie angler, um, and that's how I fish. With boilies, throwing stick. I tend not to mess around too much with particles and like that. But I have fished with particles and using a spom and things like that. I've had some nice sessions using them. But I would say, generally speaking, it's boilies for me, and I only use a couple of rigs um, with regards to that type of angling.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about sponsorship. How did that come about? Talk us through sort of what's involved with that.
Well, that sort of came about by a competition that used to run in Carp Talk, whereby if you sent your pictures in, you could win. I can't remember what it was now because it was so long ago. I mean, we're going back to sort of 2000 and maybe 2008 sort of time. But you send your photos in, and I think you won some reels, or I think there might have been a bit of cash, or I can't remember quite what it was now. But I thought, I fancy a bit of that. So sending my pictures in an attempt to win one of the prizes. And I think back at that time, I think I caught about 18 different 30s that particular year from Argyle, and I'd sent them all in, which led to a chap that used to work for Carp Talk called Ben Wales. I had a conversation with Ben. I think he works for Tracker now. And we had a chat about articles for the magazine, and what he wanted to do was get some sort of fresh blood in the magazine, I suppose, and get some people writing articles that weren't sort of household names, if you like. He just wanted to fresh it up, I suppose. So I wrote an article. It went into the magazine. It was successful, so I did another one, and then and so on. And before you know it, obviously that attracts the attention of various companies, and one thing led to another, I suppose, and yeah, I got a couple of sponsors for a few years. But then, as obviously things go on, things fizzle out, don't they? And people change and move, and obviously the magazine side of things has declined, and it's become more, online based.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's ever evolving, isn't it? Like
That's
everything,
it.
I suppose, really.
Yeah, you got Instagram and so on now, and everything's online, YouTube and so on and so forth, as opposed to a good old magazine.
Yeah, and it's hard to keep things a secret as well, isn't it? Like, gone are the days of getting on the water,
Yeah.
and nobody knowing about it. You have to put one picture, or someone notices a landmark or something like that.
Oh yeah, I mean it's out the window now. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean it's it's sort of forwards and against for that side of things. You like to try and hold a few things back for yourself, but I mean I like to try and help people out as much as possible. So I don't really hold too much back. If someone asks me a question, I'll just tell them. It doesn't. I'm only doing a night a week, really.
Yeah,
Um, I'm not on a lake where I'm fishing 2-3 nights a week, and after specific carp. And if I give the game away or what I'm doing away, it might lead to someone else capturing that fish and me missing my chance. I'm not really doing that type of angling these days, so it doesn't matter really if I say to someone what rig I'm using or how I'm baiting or anything really. It doesn't really make too much difference. I might
no,
might keep a few bits and pieces back every once in a while just for a little edge for yourself. But
yeah.
in general terms, then no, just doesn't really
So with those reservoirs, were you sort of, when you were on it, obviously before the family, were you regularly baiting? Obviously, you said you had 1830s out of Argyle in one season. Was that from a baiting campaign?
matter. It was from putting bait in, yes, but also it was from time, and I know people say, oh, that person would still catch all those fish if they only had one night a week. It's rubbish. If you've got one night a week compared to someone else who's got 3 nights,
Yeah,
the person that's got the 3 nights is obviously going to have a far better chance. I
mm,
admit that there will be variations in angling ability and
mm,
determination and confidence and everything else that goes with fishing. But in general terms, if I've got 3 nights a week compared to someone else who's got one, I'm thinking that I'm going to have a good chance of catching all the fish that I want to catch.
mm,
Before that, before the other person. So at that particular time, I work shifts. So and obviously with no family to worry about, it was literally work, fishing, work,
mm.
and whilst working, preparing rigs, bait, and so on and so forth, ready to go. So as soon as my last shift finished, I was, the van was fueled, the food was in there, the bait
Yeah,
was in there, everything's ready to go. So as soon as you finish work, bang, you're gone, you're on the lake. Then obviously you're back to work, and the same old scenario runs again. Yeah. So back then, I definitely had more time on my hands. I wasn't like a full timer, or I wasn't sat on the bank for 6 nights a week. I was,
yeah,
two nights a week, and obviously around an Easter weekend like we've got now. Um, I'd stick a third night in, but
yeah.
generally speaking, it would be 2 nights.
But it's being that consistent, isn't it, and staying in touch with the place that makes a big difference, I suppose, as well.
That's it. And when it's round the corner from your house,
Mm,
you can walk the dog around every day and whatever.
yeah,
You're going to see things. You're going to be talking to people. So whether you are, trying your hardest to glean as much information as possible between times, just by being there, you're subconsciously taking it in. So if you're
yeah,
standing yourself in good stead, ready to go, and that's the thing when we were talking about earlier, whether I was driving distances to fish lakes. Well, that's another element again that makes things very
mm,
difficult because you're not there from one week to the next. So
mm,
all you can do is look at the weather, try and find out a bit by talking to people, looking online, etc. You do what you can, but
yeah,
turning up pretty much blind. Whereas if you've got your lake on your doorstep and you get down there very regularly, it's just it's common sense that you're going to pick things up and
mm,
set yourself up in good stead, ready to go for your next session.
yeah, and trickle that bait in. That's so
That's it. Pick
important,
a
isn't
few
it?
sneaky spots, and
Yeah,
I remember back in 1997,
yeah,
I was fishing the duck pond parr or salamander, another one that Ken Townley used to write about actually.
Yeah.
And there was one particular spot on that lake. What I used to do, the fish they were really cagey, very very difficult to catch. So there was one particular spot in there that I managed to keep the fish coming from for the whole winter, and I managed to go a whole winter without blanking, which culminated in me catching the largest fish in the lake in December '97. So what it was, I would flick a lead across to the far bank, which is only a small lake, so it's only a couple of 3 acres, something like that. So I flick a lead across the far bank, walk around, get hold of the lead, attach my rig, and then go in the chest waders, and I would wade in right to the top of the chesties, right to the point where it's one more step, you're going to take a soaker. But that one more step, there was a couple of rocks, and you'd step out and you'd step onto these rocks. And you'd be sort of still at the top of the chest waders, but you'd be stood on these two rocks, which were probably both about a foot high. And then you stand there, and I'd drop the rig in, nice heavy lead, and I'd get a big handful of hemp out of the pocket in the chest waders and just sprinkle that over the top. And then I'd drop a back lead in on that side, wander back down, another back lead in from the rod end. So you've got two back leads spanning across the lake. And that spot, just a little single hook bait with a handful of hemp, and that did the job for the whole winter. So that was, that was a good example of just keeping going and being repetitive,
Yeah, that's brilliant. I spoke to someone on the previous podcast, and I bet obviously when you realised that was working for you, sort of going to, what time were the bites? Were they through the night or in the mornings?
They were nighttime bites, yeah.
Yeah. So sort of going to bed with that electric feeling, knowing it's going to happen, especially in winter. That must have been amazing.
Yeah, and it was electric as well, because every bite that you got, you were just wondering, is it the one? And there was a few in there actually. There was 2 or 3 really decent carp in there, but there was one particular fish in there that everyone wanted to catch, and I caught that fish in December 1997. And honestly, the excitement and the buzz from that, I can remember it like it was yesterday. And those things stick with you, don't they?
No, definitely.
And I'd fished hard that year, as hard as I possibly could, to try and catch that fish. And I'm all right now with regards to sort of finances and stuff like that. But at the time, you're obviously a youngster. I'm not passed my test that long beforehand, and basically you haven't got any money, because any money that you have got, you're spending on angling and just low wages, etc. I could whinge all day about it, but I remember being on that lake, and I think I was doing a week session. Took a week off work, and I think from the Thursday, I basically had no food, no money, or very little money. The car had broken down, so I couldn't go home anyway. And I remember walking to the local shops, and I think I had enough for a small amount of food to take me through until the Sunday. And then my dad was going to help me out by driving up and helping me repair the car. And I got to the shop, and I thought, right, I got a bit of money for some food. Hopefully, it will just take me through. Or because I smoked at the time, I can buy some tobacco and a tin of beans, and that will get me through as well. So that's what I went for. So I ate a tin of beans, basically a spoonful a day, for the last three or 4 days. I had my half ounce of tobacco as well, which saw me through. But that's the sort of stuff that you used to do. I'd never do that these days,
Yeah, I remember. I used to smoke, and with our dinner money, I used to go and buy fags. Just
crazy, isn't it? Yeah. Instead of getting something decent in your, you're buying rolling tobacco.
Brilliant. What weight did that biggie go from there that you were after?
It actually, I called it. 33-14.
Right.
And my little mate Sean, he caught it as well. I can't remember if he caught it before or after me now. I can't remember, but it was a Cornish record. He had it at a Cornish record. It was 34 pounds exactly. So
Wow.
yeah, and those fish disappeared. I don't know what happened to those fish. I was only talking about it to a friend of mine, Andrew N. Dean, the other day about those fish and whatever happened to them. And I don't know, they just disappeared. I think that they were stolen.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know quite what happened. And there's all sorts of rumours, and so long ago now, we'll probably never find out. But
Mm.
they were in there 1 minute and then just sort of disappeared. I don't know when they disappeared. To be honest, like the year 2000, maybe something like that.
Right.
They
Oh,
went
sad.
walkie somewhere, which is.
Yeah.
But who knows? It'd be nice to find out one day what happened to
Yeah,
those carp.
definitely. You think someone would know, wouldn't you? With it being
Yeah.
sort of a reasonably close knit, I suppose, down there.
Yeah, there was only sort of 18, 20 of them in the lake, to be honest.
Right.
There wasn't a big stock or anything, but
No.
yeah, there is still one or two in there, and I think it's a council lake,
Right.
so I think they've stocked a few little small ones in there since the council in recent
Yeah.
years, but they're certainly not um, it's certainly not the lake that it once was.
Yeah.
That way. I mean, we had I mean, we had like massive parties down there. You can imagine, okay, it's a small lake in the middle of a town, so
Yeah.
you're going to attract, all sorts down there. And I don't think it was the safest place to be for kids of our age. But well, I say kids, we were sort of 16, 17, 18. But it's one of those places. Probably a lot of those stories best left untold.
We'll have to do like a behind closed doors or something edition.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
there's a lot that could not to the general public.
yeah. That's right. Yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. How so that spot that you mentioned that you got going, how did you go about finding that spot that served you so well throughout the winter?
It was a fluke. I fell in. Yeah, basically, yeah. I was in there in the chest waders looking for a spot, and I
Yeah.
found it by accident. And
Right.
yeah, there was an old tire in there as well. That was very close by. So there was the two rocks and a
Mm.
tire that was nearby. And I suppose it was just something that the fish, swam to. It was a little
Yeah.
feature
They
on the
got rubbed
bottom.
on, I suppose, as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. But I was always very specific where I dropped the bait. It had to be.
Right.
I looked down at your feet in a sort of like a 10 to 2 on a clock face.
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
the lead had to go right in that V, if you like, and that's how I always used to drop it in.
Yeah.
Little tiny. The rig, there was no, not that I can remember, but there was. I don't think there was any leg clips around at that
Mhm.
time. I think sort of leg clips came about after that.
Mhm.
So I used to get like a 2 mil piece of silicon tube, and lead used to sit on that, and then
Right.
I used to tie on obviously to a swivel. The silicon tube would sit over the swivel with the lead on it, and I used to squeeze the swivel down a little bit on the lead,
Hmm.
um, so it would just grip to the silicon, and then your rig would be on the end of that, and that's basically how it was. If you had a
Ah,
break, you'd be fishing straight through, so no leaders or anything. So if you had a
right.
break, the lead could come off the silicon and just fall off the end of the line.
Right.
So it's fairly safe.
Yeah.
Um, I remember that as the rig, the actual sort of hook arrangement. I couldn't tell you now. I probably should have kept hold of that rig, but I couldn't.
Was that all on bottom baits you were using, or pop ups?
It was on a little yellow pop up, and we got hold of them through Frank Warwick. Actually,
All right.
he was working at a shop called Trev's of Winslow at the time.
Yeah.
And one of the lads that used to fish on the duck pond, a guy called Tim Bottomley, he was quite friendly with Frank. He was from the Manchester area, and his parents moved to Cornwall, and he obviously came down as well.
Hmm.
Um, and so Tim started fishing the Layfish College as well with us, and we
Hmm.
became really good friends. But he was friendly with Frank because he came from the area, same area as Frank did. I think they fished Reedsmere and so on.
Hmm.
And Frank was making these little pop-ups, these little yellow pop-ups, and sending them down. So we were using those.
Yeah.
I think they were Hutchinson's flavours at the time, which was Autumn Harvest, New Val Fizz,
Mm-hmm.
and a little sweetener called Pro Taste Plus. But they were awesome little bakes, and that's what we used at the time. We were all using them, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were little wonder pop ups. They were.
Yeah, originals.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you do lots of winter fishing, Tony?
I did absolutely as much fishing as I possibly could in all season. Yeah, I just go. You know, I mean, I'm not an angler that looks at moon phases and stuff, although I do think there is something in it, but I don't really follow it as such myself, because I just go when I can go, and you know, I can't pick and choose my days. So I just go when I can go, and no matter what the weather is, no matter what the time of year, um, you know, I'm going if I can, and I just do my best with the conditions that I'm in at the time. You know, that's basically how it works for my
Yeah,
angling anyway.
yeah, yeah. What do you do for work these days, Tony?
I'm a policeman. I joined the
Right. Okay.
police in 2004.
Right.
Um,
So is that, I suppose that's shift work, is it? Or
yeah, yeah. Not so much at the moment, because I'm working on sort of a crime department at the moment,
right.
um, whereby we cover crime right across the county.
Yeah.
But I did sort of 13, 14 years of 24/7, you know, response work, so,
Right.
which isn't too bad from an angling point of view, because
Yeah.
you know, you're working weekends, so you get time off in the week as well, you know. So I
Yeah.
I fished over some weekends, and I also fished some midweek time, um, depending on the shifts that I was on. But yeah, that's what I do. So I'm 16 years down the road into that at the moment as well.
Right. Brilliant. How with this current virus and lockdown and everything, how's that made things for you down there with work and personal life?
Um, Personal life is not too bad. It's we're fairly chilled out as a family, so
Mm.
um, we've got a little walk around the village. So we just, you know, we go on a little walk with the kids. They go on bikes or scooters or whatever, and we just walk. And then obviously we're stuck indoors the rest of the time. My wife's a teacher, so
Mm-hmm.
she still has to work, and obviously so do I. So we just balance that out, and it's almost sort of work life isn't as normal, but it's, you know, we're not stuck in, as a lot of people are,
Mm.
7 days a week. You know, we still have to leave the house to go to work, and then from a work point of view, yeah, I mean, crime has dropped off. You know, in general,
Mm.
the calls have decreased quite a lot, and yeah, crime has dropped off. I think there's, you know, generally across the country, the domestic side of things has gone up a bit, because,
Mm.
you know, unfortunately, there's these idiots out there that
Yeah.
cause these problems, and they're all stuck in the same building together, and obviously it's going to spark things off. But
Mm.
um, other types of crime, um, you know, your shopliftings and your thefts and criminal
Yeah.
damage and things like that, has all dropped off.
Mm.
But it will soon come back. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd imagine that's going to be. I'm sort of wondering how it's going to go. Obviously, I suppose the government have got to sort of. And there's a fine line, isn't there, between the lockdown, spreading the illness, and I'd imagine longer term a riot or something like that kicking off.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll probably sort of phase it back in stages. I
Mm.
I think the schools will be the first ones to go back, because I don't think this. Obviously, you've got the adults that work with the schools,
Yeah.
teachers and staff and so on and so forth, that are, you know, spread it quite easily. And obviously, things spread through children really easily, don't they? But it
Mm.
doesn't affect children as much as it does older people. So I think the schools will be first, and then they'll, you know, do something else, and so on, and phase everything back in. But I'm hoping that the country is just going to be in a massive state of celebration,
Yeah.
as opposed to
Yeah.
anything else, and everybody is just going to be delighted, one, that they're still alive, and two that they they can go out again, and
it's a funny time, isn't it? Like, and I've said it on previous episodes. It's just going to make everyone be so grateful for the very simple things that have been there all along that you almost take for granted.
100%. 100%. All the little things you just that are normally an absolute pain in the ass do, that you really don't want to do. You know, I'm out washing I've washed our cars are absolutely gleaming at the moment. I've cleaned them on their times. So it will do for sure. And I'm hoping that I am hoping that that the whole country, just when this is over, that they just go into sort of a celebration mode and just be thankful and be just nice and happy, and everybody just get on with their lives in a nice, easygoing way, as opposed to like riots in the street. I think if we have this lockdown for the next 2 or 3 months, then obviously people are going to start getting a bit teasy, and it's going to be really difficult to keep the lockdown on. But it needs doing, and my opinion is, if everybody sticks to it and they stick to the rules that have been put in place, the sooner we will be out the other end. If people just flout it and say, "Oh, bollocks to this, man, this isn't for me. This doesn't apply to me. I'm going to do what I want to do." Well, then you're just mucking it up for everyone else, So that's my opinion on it. That if we all stick to it and we all, do it as one, we'll all be out the other end all the more quickly.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, well said. So once the lockdown's done, what does your fishing look like, if at all? Are you still getting out? Will you be getting out?
I reckon it's going to be like clubbing seals, isn't it? When this is over, I think the fish are going to be climbing up the lines, and you'll be lucky to get a swim anywhere.
Yeah, it's going to be spawning, isn't it? Typically,
yeah,
the lockdowns.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, they'll be mid spawning, and we'll all be knackered for another couple of 3 weeks. But yeah, if I can fish, I've already said to the wife, I want to be. I'm poised. Is probably the best word. I'm poised to try and take a week off work.
Right.
And obviously, if the children aren't back to school, they can come with me. And all my kit is done, dusted. I am
like
ready to go. Yeah, honestly, I am ready to go. I'm poised and I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
My bed chair's been out in the garden all afternoon airing, so I've even gone to those lengths.
Yeah, no, I'd done that pre-lockdown because I started on a new water, respawned and everything else, did all that, had a clear out, took out all the non-essential stuff. Obviously, that was like a week before lockdown. Like, could have saved it for the lockdown.
Yeah, this is and there's probably a lot of people out there that could have gone fishing the week before and thought, oh no, I'll leave it this week and I'll go next week when the weather's hopefully a little bit better or whatever. The clocks will be going forward soon, so I'll go then. No, you won't.
Yeah. I had a chat with a mate, said exactly the same. Weirdly, like before the lockdown, I said, you just got to, if you can, do it now because you don't know what's around the corner. And then obviously this happened. Weirdly.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show, doesn't it? Life is precious, and you just never know what is around the corner.
Yeah, don't put stuff off.
Yeah, and I've been to so many jobs over the years where people have been, seriously injured and worse. That it brings it home.
Yeah.
All the time, and you just got to appreciate every moment that you get if you can. When the kids are driving you nuts, you just really want them just to shut up, and they won't. It's times like that you have to, or I do anyway. I say to myself, doesn't matter if they're winding you up. Enjoy it, because one day you're not going to be here. They're not. So just try and enjoy every moment as much as you
absolutely.
can.
Definitely, mate. Okay, what we'll do, we've got a rotary letter style question. So if I give you your question, and then you can give us your question for the next guest. So your question is, can you think of what's your worst loss in terms of fish? Has there been one that you can remember that's lost to the net, or you've had that feeling that it was the biggie you were after this come off?
To be honest, I'm probably struggling on that. I've lost lots of fish over the years, unfortunately. I'm just trying to think of one like in particular. I do remember being on Argyle one morning, and I was in a swim called the Bottom End of the Meadow, if anyone knows it. And it was when it was that Albright knot sort of first came about, and I'd on a little fluorocarbon leader, sort of like, I don't know, or whatever, using an Albright knot, and I got a take probably about 10:30 in the morning. I was putting this fish in, and everything was going very smoothly. I got it. There's a wall and a big, massive lump of rock in front of that swim, but it's good depth. So I played the fish past that, and I got it there. Once you pass that point, you're thinking, right, you're mine now. And this fish was charging up and down the marginal slope. See it there, and it looked a nice mirror, and I thought, yeah, this is good. It wasn't. I'm not talking like it was no 40-pounder or anything like that, but it was a decent fish, and I think I'd had a run of blanks, and I really wanted it, and I was playing it in. The lead had gone. I think I was using a lead clip at the time. That the lead had gone, and I'm getting close, and then the Albright knot just went. For whatever reason, I obviously hadn't tied it properly or whatever. But I mean, I was fishing probably at about 90 yards, so it was fine on the cast and so on. But for whatever reason, it went on that knot, and I saw the fish just disappear off. Say what I said.
Horrible feeling.
Yeah, and to be honest, I've never used that knot since. And it was probably, it's a great knot, and and it works. Obviously, that it's a very good knot, and it works because there's thousands of anglers that use it all the time for all sorts of rigs and so on. But since then, I've not used it, and because my confidence just completely went with it. So if I'm doing that now with the main line to the leader, I use 2 figure-of-8 loops, and I loop to loop leader on, and that is as strong as you can get. You just, nothing's going to bring that. And it comes in very handy when you want to change it, because you're not mucking around cutting and retying. Just undoing the loop and putting a new one on. It's nice and simple. Nice little tip for anyone. Use the 2 figure-of-8 loop knots when you're attaching your leaders.
Okay, cool. That's a good tip. And have you got a question for our next guest?
Yeah, sure. But we don't know who it is, do we?
No, don't know who it is, and it doesn't even have to be fishing related, mate. It can be on anything.
All right, so I'll keep it nice and easy for them then. So if they can give us 2 rigs, one for a pop-up, but not a Ronnie rig. Let's have, let's do it properly. One on a pop-up and one on a bottom bait. 2 rigs that they could highly recommend. One for a pop-up presentation and one for a bottom.
Not Ronnie. I'm making a note.
Yeah, make a note. Not a Ronnie rig.
Cool. Okay, right. We'll wrap up there. Just one thing before you go, mate. I'm getting everyone to do a 60-second sketch of a carp, video it and take a picture and send it to me. And we'll just do like a fun competition in this lockdown period. Just a bit of fun. But no longer than 60 seconds.
I've got 60 seconds to draw a fish.
Yeah, carp.
Yeah. Okay, all right. Yeah. It will look like a 4-year-old's completed it, but yeah, okay, I'll do that, mate. No worries.
Entries like that already.
They're fun.
Yeah, awesome. Tony, thank you very much, mate.
Cool. Thanks, Dom. Thanks very much. Take care.
And you, Bay.
Cheers, mate.